I am a simple man. I want to get results as easy as possible, as quickly as possible. And that's why my ult is gonna be a Warlock. Like everybody else's ult. There is a reason that everybody's ult is a Warlock. Not because it is the end-all be-all solution to your problems, but because it is so goddamn easy to play and to get ready. And you are gonna hear from many people that Fire Warlocks are the best way to go in Tier 1. And there is a bit of truth in that, but I came to dispel that notion. Is Fire, theoretically, if you're a super tryhard and you're getting everything you possibly can, the best thing you can do for you? Yes. However, there are several considerations for this. Most of your best gear is for Shadow. Shadow will outscale Fire every single time. Shadow items are cheaper, and Shadow is a lot easier to execute. Obviously, is freaking Shadow Bolt. How can you mess that up? Not to mention your AoE, the AoE you wanna use, Seed of Corruption, is shadow damage as well. So here's the problem, okay? I got the sim to illustrate. Early on in TBC, this is no longer a problem after you get raid, but you can choose between Frozen Shadow Weave, the Shadow set, or Spellfire, the Fire set. There is also a bunch of greens that you can take, either Shadow Rat or Fire Rat, of course. But even if you're not going for the greens, your three most important, most powerful items as a fresh character are the tailoring set, and they are either Shadow or Fire. There is no choice about it. And even if you were to specialize in Fire and get all the Fire gear, you could in theory do more damage. That is kinda stupid, because by the time you get raid gear, Shadow will be inequivocably better, and you're gonna have to farm your tailoring set again to swap to Shadow. That's kinda stupid. There is a real interesting quirk about Warlocks in TBC. Destruction is both Immolate and Shadow Bolt. It's in the same talents, and you are forced to take Fire talents to go to your Shadow Bolt spec. You gotta go full deep Destro because of this. Shadow and Flame, 20% more scaling on your spell power. It is so unbelievably stupid, it makes everything else work. And as you can imagine, the more spell power you get, the less useful all the other spells become. There is a theoretical point, and I am not the one to tell you exactly what it is, but there is a point where literally nothing but Shadow Bolt is worth casting. And Curse of Doom, I guess. Curse of Doom is really good. You know what I mean though. But as you can see, that says Shadow Bolt and Incinerate. You gotta take Conflagrate, you gotta take Improved Immolate, because there is nothing else really good here, and you have to go down here. It is not a choice. So even as a Shadow Bolt spec, you do take a lot of Fire talents. Of course, on the other side of this, we go Demonic Sacrifice. That's the other part of this entire thing. Of course, we are gonna sacrifice the Succubus for 15% more shadow damage, Shadow Bolt. And that means we are not gonna be doing extra fire damage. So even though you are forced to take fire talents here, you are not really gonna take advantage of them by the time you get Demonic Sacrifice. You are either fire or you are shadow. So if you have shadow gear, you wanna maximize your shadow spells that you do instead of the fire spells. And here's where it comes to play here. So we got a full set that has nothing but shadow spell power, and we have 15% extra shadow damage, of course, but we can play around this. By the way, I know people are gonna say, but Medina, you're not gonna have a full perfect best in slot raid set early on. That actually tilts the reality more in favor of Shadow for a simple reason. If you're gonna have one really good set, one really good part of your pre-base is gonna be your tailoring set. That's the first thing everybody is gonna go for. So Shadow spell power is gonna be an even bigger part of your overall stats. Are we clear on that? We are clear on that. So we have three options. Can we do Shadow Bolt with nothing else? Can we do Shadow Bolt and Immolate, refreshing the dot? And can we do Shadow Bolt, Immolate, and Corruption? We're gonna see the results right now. First of all, Shadow Bolt only is gonna be 1843 DPS. Let's write that down. Then Shadow Bolt with Immolate. I told you, we have mostly shadow spell damage. We have 15% bonus shadow damage. And even though with raid gear, Immolate plus Shadow Bolt would do more damage, you're gonna see something really funny. That's right, we lost like 3 DPS, 1835 for Shadow Bolt plus Immolate. And if we do Shadow Bolt and Corruption, that's 1840. Superior to Shadow Bolt and Immolate, but still inferior to Shadow Bolt only. For the memes, I guess I can do Immolate and Corruption. That would be funny. 1839, look at that, it is still superior to Immolate and Shadow Bolt. That's funny. But it is still not ideal. So we can see right here the ascending. The difference is very minimal, by the way. But that should actually tell you something important. If the difference is so small, in the favor of Shadow Bolt only, but even then, if the difference is so small, why would you risk messing up an Immolate, messing up a Corruption, you know, like wasting a tick, doing one tick more, one tick less, you know, mistiming it, because are you gonna play perfectly tick by tick? I don't think you are, I don't know, like, in theory you can, but like reality is very different. But how can you mess up Shadow Bolt only? You simply can't. Now there is something that will come out of this, okay? As you replace your Frozen Shadow Weave and your spell power, your Shadow spell power items over time, your fire spells like Immolate are gonna take on. And actually, if you go to Raid Beast, like this, phase 1 destruction, and we do the same test, Shadow Bolt only is gonna be 1923 and Shadow Bolt and Immolate is gonna be 1944. So yes, eventually Shadow Bolt and Immolate will outscale. Look how it works out in the end, okay? We do phase 4, right? Shadow Bolt and Immolate is gonna be 2562 and Shadow Bolt only is gonna be 2560. By the time we get to phase 5, best in slot, is gonna be 3119. And if we do Shadow Bolt only, Shadow Bolt wins. Why is that? Once again, because Shadow Bolt has 20% extra scaling. Oh, by the way, if you want to play Affliction for utility, you have to do Shadow anyway. Even when we compared a lot more gear, it is very consistent that Immolate and Shadow Bolt, or Shadow Bolt only, are extremely close together. And of course, as a sim, this is assuming perfectly controlled conditions and perfect play, which we all know is not really happening. We are not robots. And that is all to say to you guys, there is no shame in doing Shadow Bolt only, even if it's theoretically a little worse than Shadow Bolt and Immolate, depending on your gear. Just do Shadow Bolt. It's like a 5 theoretical DPS loss and you cannot mess it up. I assure you, in 99% of people, human error is gonna be more than the 5 DPS you can win or lose. Just do Shadow Bolt only, okay? When I say Warlock is Shadow Bolt only and people tell me, no, Medina, that's not true, you gotta do Immolate and Corruption. No, you don't. No, you don't. Like, yeah, sure, a computer could do it. A computer can, like, perfectly time everything and do it perfectly every time. A human, no matter how good, is gonna mess up, like, 2 ticks, you know, every so often in a fight. You know, you cannot have a perfect 100% uptime and 100% efficient Immolate and Corruption. That's not happening. And even if you do, the rewards, the difference is so tiny. So tiny. Why would you ever do that instead of just pressing Shadow Bolt? I guess it's good because if you like the one button rotation like I do, if you like just pressing Shadow Bolt and going AFK because it's an ult and you don't care, you can do it. And if you do not want to do that, if you want to have a little more spice in your life, do like Immolate and Corruption maybe, ooh, you can do it and you are not gonna really win or lose a significant amount of damage anyway. And I think that's the brilliant part of the Warlock in TBC. Very accidental, of course. They did not intend to work out this way, but it did work out this way. You can play the Warlock however the hell you want and you're gonna have very similar results. And my Warlock is gonna know one spell and one spell only, and that's called goddamn Shadow Bolt. And maybe Pseudo Corruption, you know, you still gotta AoE. Oh, of course. If you're interested in the full Shadow Bolt spec, maybe we can make a video about it some other day. I will leave you the link to WoW Sims right here in the description. I encourage you to try some stuff out, okay? This is pretty solved by now. These sims are like 4 years old. They are very solid. There are a lot of weird misconceptions about a lot of classes in TBC, and even though sims are not the end-all be-all of any argument, I think this is a great way to dispel a lot of like those myths, you know, because all the good myths have a little bit of truth and a little bit of lie. Is Warlock a one-button rotation? Not necessarily, but it can be, and it doesn't make any goddamn difference. I guess that's the TLDR. And subscribe, join the Discord, and thank you for watching.